Sorry, boy. Can you hear me, yeah? Mark, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Mark, can you hear me?
You there?
Yeah, can you try to connect there? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Mark! Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Paul?
Mark? I can hear you, yeah. Can you hear me good? 2 seconds, fucks. Seconds down connecting to the internet.
Oh, right, I couldn't hear you. I thought he was doing something wrong.
Alright, bye.
I'm good. Just on you go. 2 seconds.
Can you hear me?
Aye, I can hear you fine. Can you?
Mark?
I can hear you, Paul. Can you not hear me?
No, man.
Oh, no, man. Is that any better?
Up out now.
No, Paul, I can hear you fine.
Up out now, Mark.
How's that? Paul?
No.
I don't know what's going on here. This isn't working. This isn't working. Can you hear me, lads? Oh, really sorry about this. Paul's Skype's playing up and doesn't seem to be connecting. Hopefully he can get it sorted in the next couple of minutes. Just all I can do is apologise for about this. And I've got a pure sweat on now because I'm sitting here talking myself. Good evening anyway, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us. As I said, hopefully Paul will be back online shortly. I suppose I could just even get Barry in now.
Hello.
Hello, Barry.
Hi, Mark.
Aye, how you doing?
Not bad, buddy.
Paul's having a bit of problems with Skype now, Barry, so I didn't want to just sit
Yeah.
some dead airtime or that. How's things with you?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Feeling better?
Aye, no bad today, aye, thanks.
Good man.
So what did Jonas say about the game yesterday?
Wait, is that no, that's Mike's buddy, innit?
Oh, so it is, there I'm getting mixed up already.
That's, that's alright, mate.
It was a shocking decision, right enough, but when I seen it on the highlights there.
It is, and you know, so it's like, obviously, that costs teams getting to finals and things like that, and you know, when you're getting these things wrong, it's massive. But here, no surprise really, is it? We've gone on about the standard officials in the country.
Well,
and
again, it just proves what we've said. It's nothing. It's not any real bias to Celtic
no.
Rangers. It's just really, really poor standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that wasn't a difficult decision to make. The guy's standing right down the throat of it, and he misses it. The guy's a good yard offside. But like I say, we spoke about it before. You know, the standard officiating, that's what it is, and it's got to get better.
Hopefully, I'm not holding my breath right enough.
No. Well, it's nothing new, Mark, is it? It's not something that's just been sprung upon us. The the poor decisions throughout Scottish football. It's something that's been there for decades, and there's not been a great deal done to make any improvements, I don't think.
Well, that's what we spoke about it before and just said there's no punishment. There's no punishment for even a bad game.
No.
So that's basically, so really all it is Dundee United are just going to have to swallow it and accept it because nobody's going to do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. You know what? And I think you guys mentioned on the last podcast, you know, about the sort of decisions, and you mentioned the Callum McGregor sending off. And you know what? I kind of agree in the sense that I didn't even know that rule existed. I've got to hold my hands up. So yeah.
John put it up in the forum, and that was the first I heard it.
He did.
Even he was Ed Wan he'd forgot about it, that the change had been made.
Yeah. So they got. But the thing is as well, you're right. We just have to sit and take that. But I must admit, I quite like the club to come out and say, well, you know what? I'm not saying that result affected the outcome of the game that day, because, you know, like I said, we spoke last week, we're miles off it. But like you said, they don't face any punishment. They get away with it. So I would quite like the club to come out and say, well, you know what, we're not accepting this as happening week in, week out. See what they lot did last year. That Gerrard, he challenged every single decision that went against Rangers, from a penalty up at Pittodrie that they never got to the sending offs that they did get. He constantly challenged it, constantly called out the referees. He
brought it up as soon as he came in, didn't he?
Right from the word, right before the game had even been played, he brought it up. Now, I'm not saying that this is as a result, but look what's happened this year. You know, never up until our game hadn't been awarded a penalty against them. They'd had the most penalties awarded, they'd had no sending offs, and they'd had the most sending offs given against the opposition team when they were playing them. So I'm not saying that was the reason why, but, you know, like I say, he was very, very vocal last year, Gerrard, when he was coming out and slaughtering the refs. Who's to say that, you know, that didn't put a bit of pressure on them to start giving them decisions? So, you know, fight fire with fire. Our club should come out and just not accept that we're prepared to accept these decisions.
Every club should be coming out and speaking out against it.
Yeah, absolutely.
People are, and see, but when they're coming out and speaking against it, nobody's listening to them. The Aki's manager had a rant about it the other week. The Dundee United managers out talking about it today, and nothing's going to improve anything. There's no changes going to be made or anything.
Yeah. Well, it's like they have these meetings, don't they? They have these meetings before a season's begun with the SFA, the refereeing body, and all the managers about that. Then's the time to step up and say, well, what he is doing, or even before that, you know, what he is doing about it.
I think maybe Paul might be ready to come on and I'll just see if this is going to work.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now, lads, yeah?
I can hear you now, Paul. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was back on track again?
Yeah.
Right, good man. Some setup you've got there, boy, okay?
I was able to fix it. It's the Skpe is acting up here, like so.
Somebody doing the live chat, that message I sent you, Camp said. He says if you reset your internet, that usually helps it.
Yeah, we're going to start again.
But no, we'll just, Barry's already on the line.
So will I start so?
I was just blathering to Barry about that Dundee United game and referees and that. Are you still there, Barry?
Yeah, still here, mate.
So just give your wee intro, Paul. We'll just take it for there and then we'll go on with the show.
So, folks, sorry about the delay. Welcome to Celtic Rumours TV, the Bawz and Bovril podcast with your hosts, Mark and myself, and Barry will be joining us, and Michael will be joining us today. On today's show, we're going to talk about Celtic Rumours TV. We're going to talk to Barry about Celtic core teams potentially joining the Lowland leagues. We're going to talk about Celtic's last major rebuild under Martin O'Neill and compare this rebuild to Martin O'Neill's era. We'll also talk about the fans group joining the Celtic board and follow the likes of Chelsea, who this year are going to allow fans join their board. We will also compare Celtic's last breakdown and meltdown under the Tony Mowbray era, and we'll be discussing Celtic's last home game against St Johnstone. Firstly, Mark, off to yourself if you want to just do a few shout outs.
Just the usual quick shout-outs to Tim Alloy, ROH and young Ben, who's still recovering from his operation, and Malika, who's still stuck in Spain. Just, I'll get that over with quick and done. Just back to you, Paul.
So the latest rumours are Queen's Park's manager has thanked Celtic for the contribution to the club after they won the League Two and promotion this season. Celtic loaned Queen's Park 3 youngsters this season: Rudy Patterson, Luke O'Connell and Ryan Mallon. The Celtic trio played a major part in Queen's Park's success, and Queen's Park manager Ryan McKinnon greatly thanked the players before they returned to Celtic for next season. Celtic fans have been paying tribute to Skpe before his last game for Celtic in Celtic's shirt by paying tribute to him outside the stadium with loads of thank you messages to our Celtic captain. Celtic are reportedly scouting St Johnstone striker and midfielder Ali McCann joined today's Scottish Cup against St Mirren. Former Premier League midfielder Lee Hendry has backed Celtic to see off competition and signed Sunderland striker Charlie Wyke, who scored an incredible 30 goals this season. That's all the rumours today. So first, we're going to start off with Barry, and we're going to talk about this rebuild. That the last rebuild we had was under Martin O'Neill, and the likes of the players that he signed, the likes of Chris Sutton, Alan Thompson, Neil Lennon. I think, can Celtic attract these players, Barry, do you think, in this rebuild?
Well, the level of player that Martin O'Neill was able to attract was, top drawer. It really was. But I think I've said previously, the wages that Celtic were able to offer back then, it wasn't too far off English Premiership wages. I think the gap now it's huge. These guys are on hundreds of thousands a week. So in terms of your top end Premier League players, I don't think that's a market we'll be looking at to bring in players. However, that doesn't mean to say that we can't, under this rebuild, we can't attract some very good players. I think it'll all boil down to the manager. If it is Eddie Howe, he has a certain style of football, a certain philosophy, and what he needs to do is he needs to bring in the players that fit that system, and that's what all managers should do. They should be looking at players that they sort of trust, or a player that he's had an eye on that he thinks actually he'd fit right into the way I want to play the game. So like that. I mean, I think we've mentioned before, Paul. If it is Eddie Howe, the guy Josh King. Now, the guy Josh King, he's obviously worked under Eddie Howe. He was first choice striker under there. So that might be somebody that Eddie Howe would want to bring to the club. And if that's the case, then that's still a very good level of player. The guy was a Premiership. He's playing for Everton just now. I don't think he's playing every week. But, in terms of the actual rebuild, it's an incredible amount of players we're going to have to bring in.
Like when Martin O'Neill took over the team, he inherited quality players. There was leaders in the team. There was likes of Henrik Larsson already there, Johan Mjolby, Tommy Boyd, Jack McNamara, Maracek, Paul Lambert. They were big players before even Martin O'Neill came in, Mark, as well. And these type of leaders aren't going to be in the Celtic team next season when a new manager comes in. He's going to really have to look for
people that's going to stamp a personality on the team.
Mm-hmm. He's going to have to bring in his own kind of leaders, really, because we've seen from this season, there's not many players you can say that are leaders already in the club. That the players we're going to have leave. We're going to have Scott Brown, who his last game is on Wednesday. Oyer's going to leave. There's talks of Callum McGregor leaving. There's a young team there, really, Mark, isn't there?
But there's no experienced head. There's no big personalities left. Do you know? As you said, they're going to need somebody. Somebody like a Neil Lennon type of player to come in.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to need at least a couple of them to come in. Players that are going to help the youngsters to mature a bit and bring a bit of dig to the team, a bit of experience, a bit of hardness back to the team.
It's got what you said, Barry. to attract these players? Like, well, Celtic obviously we don't have the money to be spending this wages, but do we need to increase our wage limit to bring in? We say if Eddie Howe was coming in and he wanted to bring in his former captain, the fella Cook there, that's playing with Bournemouth, like, do we have to spend this little bit extra to bring in these players if we want to bring in leaders?
Well, I agree with Barry. We're never going to be able to shop at the big end of the market again, especially down in England. But if Eddie Howe wants to bring that boy in, well, obviously he trusts him. We're back to Martin O'Neill with Neil Lennon. Martin O'Neill really wanted Neil Lennon in. He knew what he would bring to the team, bring to the club as a whole, and it worked out. So if that boy Cook, if that's who Howe wants to bring in today, be that kind of person, then you've got to kind of let him bring in a couple of his own players that he knows before and he's worked with and he trusts. But it's again the money side of things. I've said for ages, it's not the transfer fees we pay, it's the wages that's been our problem. If we'd upped the wages we were paying, we'd have been able to attract better calibre of players. And I think Brexit's going to make it tough to bring in players from abroad as well from now on. And again, you're probably looking down at the Championship, and there's probably a lot of players down there as well that even now I don't think we could match their wages. See, like a lot of the big players in that Championship, they'll be on serious money as well, Paul.
Exactly. So, like, in Martin O'Neill's time he was at the club, he spent roughly £35 million. That's the most he spent in players. Now, I didn't include loan fees and stuff like that. These are the players that he actually signed at his time in the club, Barry. Like, do you think we're going to spend that in one season, next season? 35 million?
You know what, Paul? I think in any other season gone by, you would think that that's just not going to happen. It's ridiculous. However, like I said, with the size of the rebuild that's going to happen this summer, I don't think that's... I might be completely wrong here, but I don't think that's overly out of the question. Obviously, we're going to get a lot of money in terms of transfer fees from selling players. You know, Edward, we think, will obviously be away. Ayer, Incham, Christie. So we're going to pull a lot of money in. We've also sold boys already, like Frimpong. You know, these away, 11.5 million. But I mean, I had a wee look at it last night after getting your message about O'Neill's rebuild. I had a wee look at it last night, and O'Neill, he took about 3 years to sort of build his squad. You know, I had a look at it. His first season, I think he brought in Jos Vilharen, he brought in Chris Sutton as a striker. I think he brought in a guy, and I think in the January he brought in, or maybe sort of later, maybe after the summer, he brought in Neil Lennon. And then the year after, he sort of brought in Bobo Balde, he brought in John Hartson. So Alan Thompson was his second year. So, you know, he had a sort of 2 or 3 years to put that squad together. But, I mean, I was having a wee think. I think we might need to bring in excess of 10, 12 players. I really do. I think, you know, obviously we've lost Frimpong, we've lost El Hamid, and the likelihood is that John Joe Kenny will go back to... I can't see us making that deal permanent. So there's 3 right backs that have left your club. That kind of leaves us with Anthony Ralston and possibly the young guy Leo Connor. But, you know, you're wanting... So I think you're going to have to go and sign at least 2 right backs, maybe 3 centre-halves, a first-choice left-back. You know, if Lee Griffiths does leave along with Edward, we've just lost Kamala, there's 3 strikers you have to replace. So,
like, has any club really been in a state, Barry, where we're going to be at the end of the season? Like, it was like... It's a real kind of a stage that Celtic are going to be in. And it's really... it's going to be a big challenge, like, whoever the manager comes in, because straight away, like, he's going to be under pressure to bring in these players and to make sure these players are right.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an enormous challenge. There's no doubt about it. And to go back to your point, I can certainly never remember a Celtic team ever having this size of rebuild on their hands. I don't know about any other teams, but, you know, the Celtic team in itself. But for me, that comes down to poor management. I think you guys have possibly discussed it on a previous podcast. That it should never have been allowed that there's guys now going into the final year of their contract who want out the club, you know, along with multiple loan players that we're having at the club. I don't think any of them's worked out. There's potentially an argument for El Yunusi. Myself, I wouldn't fork out money for El Yunusi. I think he's a decent player, but I don't know what his best position is, to be honest. So, you know, with all the players that are wanting out the door, and all the players that are going back to their respective clubs, along with guys who potentially will just that Celtic might want to. It's going to be a huge rebuild. However, it's also an exciting project for somebody coming in. Like I say, if it is Eddie Howe, it's also a right good opportunity for him to come in and bring his own sort of players in, because he'll not have to adapt to the players that are at the club. They'll have to adapt to him. So he'll have like a blank canvas to go out and sign players and bring players that he wants in at the club, like I said earlier, that are going to fit his style of football, his philosophy. So it's a really good opportunity for a manager to come in and rebuild a club the size of Celtic.
Mm-hmm. Mark, are we going to, like, is this going to be the first time in Celtic's history that they'll actually go over their transfer fee spend in history? Do you think that's going to happen it must happen this season, really, Mark, doesn't it?
I was going to say that, Paul. I think it has to happen. There's no question about
Mm-hmm.
it. Barry's listed the players we're expecting to leave. Well, you can throw the goalkeeper into that mix as well, Barry. We might need a new goalkeeper. We might it's looking with Barkas. I think Celtic will spend serious money this summer. They really have to. Because of the players that are leaving and the state the team will be in. B, they need to prove to the fans that it's going to be worth shelling out for season ticket monies and everything else that's going to happen. And B, because we need to get back to winning. Basically, we need to.
And like, is it the players' fault, like running their contracts down, or would you blame the board, Mark, to where we actually came from? Like, I'm not talking about the loss this year, but the way so many players are leaving the club at the end of the season, potentially, like what we named out, like could leave. Like, is that the board's fault, Mark, or is it the manager at the time, Neil Lennon, not negotiating new contracts with these players before, or they just don't want to sign?
That's no Neil Lennon that does that. That's Peter Lovell that would have been doing that. I think it's a bit short-sightedness for the board and for Lovell, and it's a bit unlucky. I think it's just been unlucky that the players that we've signed haven't extended their deal. Do you know what I mean? If I had signed a new contract like last year for another 3 years or something like that, but it's just been quite obvious that they've not really been interested in signing a contract for a while. So I think it was just a bit of bad luck that was involved in that as well.
So when do you think, like, the likes of, like as I said to Barry as well, like being a player, Barry, like, and you say you have a year left in your contract, when should the board really be considering new contract negotiations with yourselves, like with a player?
Well, I don't think a board should or a club should ever let a player get into the last year of their contract.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that should ever be the case, because you're running a big risk there. If you let a player go into the last year of his contract and say, listen, we're going to give you a longer contract on better terms, they turn round and say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not really interested, I'm wanting to move on. You're going to potentially lose them to a pre-contract agreement in the January, or for nothing the following summer. Obviously, mm-hmm. we know the reasoning behind why this has happened. Celtic refused to sell Odsonne Edouard, Ajer, Christie last summer because we were going for a 10 in a row. And as a result, it's not worked out, and these guys are going into the last year of their contract. And that's why, we're going to have to sell. Even if the players wanted to stay, unless they were prepared to sign a new contract, Celtic have to sell them, because Celtic, the financial state that the whole football is in, we can't afford to lose these assets for nothing. So we as looking at it on a business side point of view, we have to sell them. But to go back to your original point, Paul, you should be looking, maybe even if a player's on a 4-year contract, even a year into it, 2 at the latest. If they're progressing and doing well for the club, obviously they're going to have teams that are going to be interested. So I think maybe every year you should be looking at a player's contract, potentially extending it, giving them a wee bit more money or whatever it is. But certainly never ever should you let a player get into the final year of their contract, because you're then run the risk of potentially losing them for nothing.
Mark?
I don't think Celtic will let Edouard hang about just to see out a contract, but I agree with Barry there. It's definitely something that it should be looked at more frequently. Just even to the fact, Dave, see if you've got a young player that's playing well, as Barry says, see at the end of the season, why not give him a small rise kind of thing? Keep him happy and stick another year on his contract for it.
Yeah.
And I think
because
we've been good at that in the past. You know, they've done it with McGregor. I think McGregor signed a few contracts. You know, Tierney was another one. You know, they signed and that's what they were doing. Like, they gave him a contract, then a year, there was another year of progression, therefore they bumped up to another contract. So they've done it in the past, you know, but I think as well, with regards to, you know, spending record amounts of money, like Mark said, like I'm sure we all pretty much agree, this is going to be a big year for how much we're spending, but I think it's about being smart in the transfer market as well, because there will be guys out there that are coming to the end of their contracts. There's some right good players as well. So it's about being smart in the transfer market. So if there's, for example, we spoke about him before, the guy Josh King, he's coming to the end of his contract. There's a Premier League striker that if you're not paying a fee, you can maybe bump up their wages, pay them a decent wage to come up and play in Scotland. But the thing that worries me slightly is the whole sort of scouting system's non-existent just now with, you know, Nicky Hammond going, Penrice going. So who is doing the recruitment just now? Like I say, I hope it's maybe the manager in waiting that's sounding out a player. I said it on the last podcast. I like to think that he sounded out a right few players as well as maybe whoever the director of football may be. So because it's a monumental rebuild that's about to happen, and hopefully it's going to start in the next week or two, because the season finishes next weekend, and we need to start the ball rolling as soon as possible.
Do you think like that with the new manager coming in, like there's people are already saying that Callum McGregor is going to be the next Celtic captain thing? Like, do you think it should be up to the manager to choose his own captain, bring in his own player if he wants a captain, or should, like, because he's been at the club so long, like he should be automatically captain, Callum McGregor, Barry?
Not for me, Paul. No, I don't think because McGregor's been there for a period of time that he's automatically should be the captain. For me, personal thing, I think the manager should appoint the captain. He knows, you know, and if he was to bring in Steve Cook and fans say that, you know, no, I want him to lead, you know, I trust, he's a player that I trust and he's got great leadership qualities, I'd certainly trust the manager to make that appointment. And, you know, something, McGregor, you know, like I said before, I'm a massive McGregor fan. And if he is still here next year, it might take that wee bit of weight off his shoulders, you know, if he's not the captain. He doesn't look like he's the most vocal on the park. So he's not had the greatest of seasons this year, as have many in the Celtic team, but it might take that wee bit of pressure off him and let him go and play his game, and we might see a better Callum McGregor next year if he isn't the captain. But yeah, I would certainly be looking for my manager to appoint the captain that they want to lead the team.
And see if it's going to be appointed in length of time at the club. It will be James Forrest.
Mm-hmm.
Forrest.
Exactly. What would you be in favour, Mark?
No,
would you be in favour of a new manager coming in, like let him have the decision, you know?
I agree with Barry. Unless it's somebody coming into Celtic and it's like Scott Brown's already there, that kind of thing, a player like that. But if it's a new manager coming in and the club's looking for a new captain, it should be up to the new manager. I agree with Barry on that. The captain,
like you could look at
captain's the kind of sounding board. He's the middleman between the management and the players. So they've got to, the manager and the captain's got to go on to an extent as well.
You could look at the fact that sorry, go on, Mark.
No, I was just going to say, I think as well, like, unfortunately, there's nobody in the team just now that screams out, you know, I'm a captain in waiting. No. You know, potentially maybe Ayer would have, but like I say, we don't think Ayer's going to be there. So unfortunately, I don't think there's anybody in the side just now that you think he's a captain in waiting, you know. So I think go by that, so
like has Scott Brown can maybe kind of block these players from being vocal on the pitch, that he's the captain, he's the centre of the team, like to get that effect from the club, Mark, you know, that Scott Brown is the main man in Celtic, and maybe if he did leave, we could see a more vocal Callum McGregor then, you know.
No, I wouldn't like to think that, Paul. I mean, look at Roy Keane. I mean, some of the players he played beside, guys like Steve Bruce and that, they were Cantona, David Beckham, they weren't quiet. So even if you're a strong personality, even to the extent maybe even a bit arrogant about it, it shouldn't affect it shouldn't affect other players to be vocal during games and that. I agree with Barry. There's just nobody else in the team apart from that you would say has got that kind of dig and swagger about them to be a Celtic captain.
And that's not the way it should work. It shouldn't just be down to Scott Brown to be vocal. There should be vocal all over the park. There should be team leaders, not just one leader. I mean, you look at Martin O'Neill's team. You know, that you had the captain, well, it was Paul Lambert for a while, wasn't it? But you had guys like Neil Lennon, Chris Sutton, John Hartson, Johan Mialbe, even Stilian Petrov. You know, there's a story, isn't there, that Stilian Petrov going for Bobo Balde in the dress. Well, mistake. He shouldn't have done that. But, you know, there was a younger player, you know, so it shouldn't come down to just because Scott Brown's, you know, captain and leader barking out the orders. Everybody on the park should be leaders. You should be looking for leadership on the park from everybody. And that's what makes real quality teams, is the fact that there's umpteen leaders on the park and in the changing room. And maybe that's an issue that we have. Well, it appears to be an issue that we have at the minute, that we just don't, apart from Scott Brown, we don't really see any obvious leaders on the park.
But would you think that's down to maybe this project that Celtic are doing, Barry, by signing these younger players and trying to progress them into getting big money, that we're not actually signing experienced players who have experience in the game and who are these vocal players on the pitch? You know, do you think that's down to the way Celtic go about their transfer fees?
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that that's the way they do it. You know, I think we've spoke before that projects are good, you know, and some of them work out, etc. But it would be great to not flood your team with them. You know, I think we signed too many potential projects. Some have worked out, a lot haven't. But, you know, if we'd have gone for more experience can be invaluable, especially when you're looking to develop young players. You know, if you've got experienced players in beside you, they're the ones that help you progress your game, you know, sometimes more than the manager does in match situations. So you could say that, you know, maybe we've tried to bring in too many projects, you know, younger players, unknown players, to develop them. But like I say, for every sort of Odsonne Edouard, there's maybe a Marian Shved or a Bayo, you know. I think, like, you shouldn't look to do that too often. It's always a bit better to bring in sort of more experienced players, or more players that have sort of been there and done that, or more sort of leaders into your team. So I think that it's probably a valid point that, you know, the projects, we've probably had too many of them. And unfortunately, not all of them work out.
That'd be my only concern, is like we say, like with the new manager coming in, like the board telling him, like, this is the way we do stuff. We invest in players, we buy them at a low price and things like I'm hoping like that's not the kind of type of player that this new manager will go for, that he's left. Bring in experienced players, Barry, you know, and they're not all going to be projects that he brings in, you know, because with the season we have next season to win the title back, that's not going to work with all these young players trying to gel and trying to make it in their first season at Celtic. Like, it won't work next season, will it? You know?
No, I mean, I'd like to think that, you know, there'll be a mix of both, you know, mix of some young players along with experienced players. Like I say,
like Josh King, like you said, like he's been there, he's done that, he knows he can score goals. Like, that's the kind of player. Yeah. If we're going to bring in a youngster, bring in a player like that with him, so the youngster can learn off him, like, isn't it?
Well, that's it, and it comes down to the manager as well. Like I say, if it's Eddie Howe might think, and he might not, but he might think, you know what, Josh King, I've worked with him before, he's delivered for me in the Premier League, he's a good player, you know, he's at a good age, I think he's only about 28, 29 year old, so there's a quality player, you know, and that's somebody that the manager trusts, and that's the way it should be. I hope that it's not going to be the same, you know, board dictatorship that say, look, this is the way we do things, you just have to run with it. I'd like to think Eddie Howe has got a bit about him to say, well, listen, these are my demands, these are what I want to bring, and this is how I feel that I'm going to be a success at this football club and bring success back to the club, and it's got to be a bit of give and take, you know. So like I say, the board have to trust Eddie or the director of football, whoever it may be, you know, that are going to be recruiting players, because like we've said, it's going to be an enormous summer for us in terms of recruitment and overall player overhaul. So you're hoping that the board and the manager and the director of football can all work together, because like I say, I've never known a recruitment process in my lifetime that it's going to have this summer with Celtic.
Mark, would you agree with that? Like
I
being in kind of a more experienced players and kind of have a few young players coming, but not to the extent that we did over the years. Considering the way we are now.
It was as if they put making money on players above the actual players that were out in the as if we'll sign this young guy for like Bio and things like that. We'll sign him for that, and we'll maybe get 5 million for him in a couple of years, rather than just leaving him alone and going out and spending £3 million on a finished striker, a finished article for first team squad. But the experience thing is a big thing with the keeper as well. Is born with that Begovic. I wouldn't mind Tim. I wouldn't mind Tim coming in as well. A bit more experience in goal and let Hazard go out on loan for a year.
Well, is that because because of these projects? Is that because where we are now? Because like we're bringing in all these young players and stuff, and they're not able to compete. Like, do you see Zorro there now? Like he's not able to come in and compete against the likes of Scott Brown and the likes of young players coming in, and like Dembele is not able to compete against James Forrest. Like, is that because of that signing these projects is where we are now, that we have this huge rebuild because all these players now are going to leave, and we're just left with a bunch of youths that we have no experienced players left. Is that because of the way we're going about stuff?
Part of it, and another part is the amount of loans that we've brought in.
Just like, we're not replacing players really, Mark, are we? We're just fixing a position for one season, and then they're going back to the parent clubs, and then we're back to square one then again.
See, when Lustig left, Celtic should have either had a young right back that was ready to step in, or bought a right back in while the younger boy was still learning his trade and trying to push himself into the first team. We just go out and get signings. So we're not curing any of the problems. We're just putting a sticking plaster on it.
That's it.
And I think it goes back to what you mentioned earlier as well. We're signing players that are signed for the squad. That they're not. We should be signing first team players that are ready to come in and play first team football.
That's what I'm saying. About these players that we signed, they can make an impact in the team maybe 3 years down the line, but they're not improving the squad for that season. Do you get me?
Absolutely. Like I say, that tended to be the model through. Paul, we'd have it's like we had a set team, and this was our team, and any signings that were brought in with a project in mind. Let's see how.
So realistically, like, you're not improving your team either. Then, so Barry, so you're not. Like the money that we spent, like 15 million, like, you think you're going to improve your team signing 15 million, really, don't you?
Exactly, and I think like the window before last summer in the January, it's Klimala and Sorrow that were brought in. Sorrow never got a minute of football for about 9 months, and Klimala got the odd, appearance here and there. That's not. We need players that can come in, can compete. We spoke about it before on previous podcasts. You want players to come in and be fighting for a jersey.
Exactly.
I think too often there's been players that have been maybe a bit too comfortable in the first team, that have never really had anybody pushing them. Whereas, I don't necessarily agree with that model. You want to bring in players that are ready to play first team, and you know what? Let them fight it out. Let them impress in training or impress in the opportunities they get, because that can only be good for your team. If you've got guys fighting for positions and really sort of looking to impress, that can only be healthy for your team. Because if one player comes in and that means when a regular first teamer gets dropped, that means he's then got a fight on his hands to get back in the team, and that's always been healthy for squads to have that happening. But
if you have two players really, for like, you look at the big clubs down in England and stuff, like, they've 2 players really competing for one position. It's only going to improve. But if you're like we say Scott Brown, calibre, if you don't have these players in your thing, like, they're just going to play comfortably on the pitch, knowing that they're not going to be dropped the next game, and that's been the position that we're in this season. Even when John Kennedy coming in manager, he's playing the same players, but there's no players really to come in to make a difference to these players. There's no one better than these players within the squad, really, is there? You know,
and that's been, for me, that's been a failing in the recruitment process, because that's obviously the way that the road they wanted to take. We're going to go down this line of looking to go into markets whereby we can sign younger players bring them in development. That's what the scouting system have had to do. They've went out and identified.
But they were told,
players.
exactly. They're only going by what they're told, really.
Oh, absolutely. And for me, that's the wrong direction. I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but that's the wrong direction. We should have been going out and looking to strengthen the first team, the actual team, not the squad. We should have been going to look and strengthen the first team, bring in players that are ready-made to step into that team. And like I say, we've done that in the past. That's what Martin O'Neill did. Martin O'Neill had Henrik Larsson and Chris Sutton up front, but he went and signed John Hartson. John Hartson, Premier League striker. And he's done. Same. I think at one point we had Valharin, Mjällby, and Stubbs. They were three centre halves. Yet he went out and brought in Bobo Baldi. And that meant that maybe one of them had to sit out. Whereas, like I said, we brought in these younger players that we thought, there's a hope. It's kind of hope more than expect. Hopefully we can get these guys developed.
For a young fella, my experience watching the Scottish League, like the Scottish League it's more of a tougher league rather than a skillful league. And if you're a young player coming in from England, 18, 19, it's very hard to compete up in Scotland, isn't it? Like if you're up against these tough like players in Dundee United, Hampton, who have tough centre backs and stuff like that. Like you need like the likes of a Josh King that's able to withstand their wind-ups and stuff like that. Like it's very hard for a youngster to be able to come to grips with a tough defender on your back all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any doubt that the Scottish game's a physical game. It's a physical, fast-paced game. So sometimes is asking a lot of a young guy, 18, 19-year-old guy to come in and be up to speed and be able to handle the physical side of things. But like I said, that's the way the Scottish game is. So again, it goes back to maybe bringing in sort of guys that are sort of ready-made and maybe that bit more physical, bit tougher, understand the league. Again, but that again comes down to the manager and the recruitment team and identifying players that will come in and maybe suit playing in the Scottish League or suit playing in the new manager's system. That's up to them to identify that, and hopefully that's what they're going to do.
Going back to what you said, Mark, that it's going to be harder to sign the English-based players than British-based players this year because of Brexit.
No,
like if you're
going to be harder to sign foreigners.
Yeah, but going by that, so foreigner players, is it going to be more expensive to sign British players because of that? Because they know, like the likes of League One and down the Premier League, League One and League Two and the Championship. Is it going to be more expensive to sign players like that? Like who would be capable to come up and make a difference in Celtic?
It could be, because English teams are going to be looking. They're going to be looking at the Championship as well. So that
because not only do we see like the likes of Premier League clubs now are going looking down. I mean, the lower leagues have.
That's what I mean. I mean, obviously the big rich clubs will find some loophole that doesn't affect them signing the latest wonder kid for wherever they're from and that. But the other clubs in England, they'll need to look into the Championship. But it will also help up in Scotland, because they'll need to look in Scotland for players, even if it is squad players and that. And well, money they're going to offer them, they're going to take it. But the Brexit is going to be a big game changer when it comes to transfers and that.
I think I might be wrong. I'm sure I read, somebody might be able to confirm if this is right or wrong, but I'm sure I read that this coming window, is the last window whereby, I don't know if it's Scotland or Britain, we'll just go with Scotland, can sign players overseas. Because I'm sure when the Brexit thing happened, there was an agreement with UEFA or whoever it may be that for the next two windows, that you can sign foreign players, but after that they'll need visas. So I think this is the second window. So this is potentially City's last opportunity to go and sign players from overseas. But like I say,
see, with the thing with the permits, I don't know how strict in that it's going to be again, but it was the English rule, the way the English games looked upon compared to the Scottish game, it was a lot harder for English teams to get work permits than it was for Scottish teams. That's we get Yama because of that. It's an exceptional talent rule, as they call it. Birmingham tried to sign him and they couldn't get a work permit for him, and then we tried to sign him. Good, and Alex McLeish actually spoke up. It was Alex McLeish, he was the manager at Birmingham at the time, and he spoke up and says, like he is an exceptional talent kind of thing. So I think Scotland might find a wee, maybe see because of that wee loophole, Because then if they come up to Scotland for 2 or 3 years, would that help them even get their work permit down in England quicker?
Yeah. And see, to be honest, I think I'd be quite keen for us to explore the British market. I think it's less of a risk when it comes to the actual success of the signing.
Exactly,
if you've got a player, we'll just say in the Scottish League, for example, there's players at Nisbet, at Hibs, Ferguson, at Aberdeen. These are guys that they played in the league, so we know they can handle the Scottish League. They speak the language. Sorry, they know the weather. Things like that. We've had a lot of players. Shved, for example, he came across as a 19-year-old kid from the Ukraine, didn't speak the language. Didn't have his family with him. And as a result, the transfers backfired. Whereas if you shop in the British market, these, like I said, these guys speak the language. They know the league. They know the physicality of it. So I think there's less of a risk when you're going and signing either players from Scotland or down south.
I think, like, with the new... Sorry, Mark, go on.
Just to go back to when we were talking about where we could get players like say Sutton and Hartson that up here again. Well, when Brendan Rodgers was here, we get Sinclair up. I mean,
that's what I was just about to say the same. Like, Jack King would be a similar player, Mark, wouldn't he?
Well, Sinclair's stock was low down in England, and he came up here and shone out. Right, and Sutton's stock was rock bottom in England after he moved to Chelsea. He came up here and shone out. So there is good quality players down there that probably would come up here and fancy it.
Definitely, Mark. And another one was Alan Thompson. Alan Thompson was playing reserve football for Aston Villa when Celtic signed him. There was a lot of eyebrows raised at the time. What they're bringing this guy in for? Well, he came up to Scotland. He came up to Celtic, and he was brilliant. And on the back of it, he got an international cap for his performances for Celtic, domestically and in Europe. So, like you said, there is players, and sometimes you just need to sort of refine yourself. Like you say, with Sutton there, Mark, Sutton was the move to Chelsea didn't work out for him. Didn't mean he was a bad player, and he came up here and proved it. So there is.
Well, I'd be looking at, like, Barry, would like the new director of football. If we are appointing a new director of football as well as the manager, would have a knowledge of the lower leagues in England as well, and actually see these players down the lower leagues of England who could actually make a difference at Celtic, rather than going abroad for the likes of Ukraine and stuff like that, who aren't used to the league. That we hire someone who has the knowledge of the likes of Scottish football.
Fans demand fancy big foreign name multi-million-pound signings. I think that was into it. Yeah. Celtic went down and signed somebody.
Abdul McCarthy from South Africa.
Chiefs Celtic went out and signed some player that was playing down in the English third division. Right away, the fans, what we saying? None of us will ever seen the guy play, but we'll immediately be slagging him off.
Yeah. That's it, yeah. And that's always going to be fans, though, isn't it, Barry? Like, isn't this?
Yeah. And when you look at it, Mark's right, but at the same time, we should never turn our nose up at these sides. Let them see what it can do first. You spoke about the guy Charlie Wyke being linked to Sunderland. He scored 30 odd goals this season. Yeah, 30 goals this season for Sunderland. Oh, okay, they're down in I think they're in League One, aren't they? But that's where Ivan Toney was. Ivan Toney was in Peterborough in League One.
But League One is a tough league too, Barry, compared to what Sunderland are finding very hard to get up out of that league, really, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely, and like I say, so I'm quite keen on them bringing in the British players, because we've tried going into foreign markets and it's not always been a success. Look what happened with Klamala, even Ayeti. He came from a Premiership club, English Premiership club, and it's just not worked out. So I wouldn't be turning my nose up at these players. We've had success in the past. Gary Hooper, he came from Scunthorpe. Scored a hatful of goals for it. So I wouldn't be turning my nose up at these players that we've maybe been linked to. I know a lot of fans, Charlie, and I'm not saying like Charlie Wyke's the answer, but he's been linked with us. There's been some negative comments on social media, why we're looking to sign a player from that. But it's him that the manager wants to bring in. Let's see what he can do. Let's see what the guy's a goal scorer, clearly. Like I say, it might not be him, but I wouldn't be so hasty.
Can't be any worse than what we have, really, in Bawz Barry. Do you know what I mean?
Some of these British players.
Is English League One any worse than playing Ackies on a Wednesday night, the standard of football. Do you get what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, that's like, is it any worse than the playing likes of St Mirren, Hamilton, or do you know?
Boy scoring 30 goals down in that English League One, he'll score at least 10, 15 goals up here, I'd say. So see, like a squad player, so why no? But I agree with Barry.
Yeah.
If I look down in the other leagues in England and see what's about.
Yeah. And like I say, look at Ivan Toney. He played in League One last year. I don't even know if he scored as many as 30 goals like the boy did, but he got his move up a division and he scored 30 goals in the Championship, and he could have been scoring goals in Scotland this season. Unfortunately, that's a deal we never got over the line. So, like I say, you know, there is players down there that I reckon could do a job for us, but we just need to trust whoever the management is, whoever the director of football and the scouting network. We just need to trust them. And we'll see what they develop. And, you know, as Celtic supporters, we'll always give the players the full backing anyway, whoever comes in the door.
Okay, so we're going to let that down. As we can see, we're going to just wait and see who Celtic appoint as manager and thing. But one thing I do want to look at is the Celtic Cold teams potentially being involved in this Lowland League. And what is this Lowland League, market? Because I don't know what this league is.
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure, Paul. Is it like is that like the Highland just below the actual main leagues? It's down. You've got the Highland League and the Lowland League. It's like amateur stuff. Barry probably knows more about that than I would.
Well, that's the Lowland League. It's like a step up from junior. And the champions of the Lowland League this year were Celtic Hearts. That was Barry Ferguson's team. And what they did was they had a playoff against Brora Rangers during the week there, and Celtic beat them. So now Celtic are facing, I think it's Brechin, in a playoff to get access into the Football League. So that's the Lowland League. And I think that's where the whole Colts thing comes into it. So I don't. Has it been said that the Colts are going to enter the Lowland League, or is it they're going to be?
Decision is going to be. They're discussing it tomorrow. So Celtic will pay 25,000 to the league to join this league for one season and see where it goes. Like, what kind of players would be playing in this Cold team, Barry? Like, with the likes of, we say, who I named, who had a successful season at Queen's Park, the likes of Luke O'Connell, the young fella Hartson, and will they be playing in the Celtic team when they come back, or is it going to be more junior players playing in this?
I mean, I think it's a bit of a mix of both, Paul, isn't it? I think it's your young kids, you know, maybe your 17, 18-year-old youth players, and maybe some of the guys, the younger players that are on the periphery of the first team, like your maybe Luke O'Connells, your Ewan Hendersons. But if it's the Lowland League that they're looking to gain entry to, I don't know if that would be a benefit to the Colts.
Exactly.
I could understand. Yeah, I could understand if they were looking to get access into the Football League, but obviously I think there's many barriers up. There's a lot of opposition from, your lower senior clubs about that, but I don't know what benefit that would have, because if it's the sort of level of Celtic Hearts, you know, no disrespect to them, but I don't know if that's the type of teams I'd want my young players going up against. I don't know how much they would benefit or how much they would learn from playing
what my team would be like would be the standards of these pitches, and if we have our next Celtic prospects playing in this, picking up an injury, we say, on these pitches, like, you know, is it going to be a benefit?
It would be really, really tough physical games, Paul.
That's what, yeah.
Down the park.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you're going to have young fellas.
Only part-time, isn't it, Barry?
Yeah.
Part-time players.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's certainly no full-time down there. And like I say, Celtic Hearts, they were a junior team. They were a Super League junior team. And they've obviously gained entry into the Lowland League. I don't even know who else competes, to be perfectly honest with you. But they were a junior team. They'll be of junior level. Like I say, they've probably threw a bit of money at it to bring in guys like Barry Ferguson. And I'd imagine as a result, they've probably got a few ex-pros in their team. But I don't see how that's going to be beneficial.
Would you be worried about,
Barry,
would you be worried about heavy tackles on a heavy pitch on our young players in this league?
Well, we've spoke about that before, and that's what happens. There'll kind of be a target on their back, won't there? These players that are maybe
jealousy or something, like, you know what I mean, like jealousy from players. They
go up against a Celtic or a Rangers, and they want to really make a name for themselves. And sometimes you are on the receiving end of that. So I'm not overly keen on that idea, to be honest with you.
I'm not keen on them actually joining any of the Scottish leagues, because I think it takes away from the actual league. I mean, if you're a East Fife supporter or something, it's finishing third behind the Celtic, Rangers, Colts and getting promoted the same as actually winning a league.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree with that, Matt.
They'd still be getting promoted, but you'd still we won the league, but you didn't really, because it was Celtic and Rangers that were above you.
Like, will this take away? Do you think, like, if Celtic did get the agreement tomorrow, like, do you think this will take away Celtic's letting players go out and loan to the likes of Queen's Park again, that they have this B team now and they want to put their players through that system? Will that hinder Celtic loan out players, Barry, do you think?
I'd like to think not, Paul. I'd like to think not, because I don't see how these players are going to benefit or develop their game going up against a sort of Celtic Hearts or, a team like that. I don't see how that's going to benefit them. So I mean, I've spoke about it before. I'd like to see these guys go out and play in the lower senior leagues. Rather than sort of playing in the Lowland. I'd rather they got loaned out to Dumbarton or a Queen's Park, or even your older ones. I mean, like, I spoke about him a few times now, bang on about him a bit much, but that, Luke O'Connell, there he was again. He got another goal there in the last game for Queen's Park. He's really embraced an opportunity to go out on loan and play at, a reasonable level. Okay, I think it's
in the squad next season.
Yeah, well, you know what, Mark, you should certainly have an opportunity. Like I said, the new manager coming in, it's a clean slate for everybody to go and impress him. So, and 2 or 3 months into the season, we'll have an idea of who out the sort of younger players are going to be in and around the first team squad. And the ones that maybe aren't, rather than playing in a Colt team in the Lowland League, I'd rather see them go out and get farmed out to your Dunfermline, like Ewan Henderson and Kerr McInroy. They both got farmed out to Dunfermline. Afalabi, he was away to Dundee. That's championship level. It's still a good level. That's where you're going to progress your game, not playing against a Celtic Hearts. Like I say, no disrespect to them, but we need to look after ourselves and we need to develop these young players. And for me, that would be by going out and getting farmed out to teams maybe in the Championship or in League One. That's the way you're going to develop your game and learn another side to your game, like I've spoke about before.
Mm-hmm. Mark?
No, I've nothing to add to that.
So I'm going to leave it there. I think, look, Brian was supposed to join us today, but unfortunately Brian can't make it. So I'm sure Barry will stay on the line just to go through this topic, just about the email being sent to Celtic supporters, season ticket holders this week. If any of you don't know, I'll just read out the email that was sent.
Put a link into the live chat as well, Paul.
Mm-hmm. So, as a valid Celtic supporter, we want to provide you with an update on a few key subjects. The club is working hard to complete the appointment of a new manager and relevant football staff, and we'll be doing all we can to confirm this as soon as possible. Rightly, there's always a huge appetite for information from our supporters. Unfortunately, we are need to make this a regular comment on this matter, but we fully understand and appreciate the need to complete the process as soon as possible. We also acknowledge and understand the frustration of our supporters during this process, but our job, of course, is ensure we secure the best candidate possible to take the club forward, and this is our focus. We will update our supporters throughout the club communication channels as soon as we read. We are now in a transitional period in respect to our Chief Executive hand-up Peter Law. Our CEO is working close with our income CEO Dominic McCoy and successfully handover to ensure that we are ready for next season across all aspects of the club. With considerable planning and priority work already undertaken, importantly, Peter and Dom, along with colleagues, plan to have met all of our main supporters groups by next weekend's end, and dialogue with all our supporters is crucial to everyone at the club. We recognise there are many challenges ahead, but we are ready to tackle these together, with our aim always to give supporters as a club they can be proud and based on great Celtic values. We aim very shortly to make announcements on season tickets. Clearly, there are some numbers of issues concerning the return of supporters to matches, and we hope to give our fans as much clarity as possible in terms of the proposal. Again, we understand supporters wishing to make plans for next season, so these details will be announced to the club as soon as possible to ensure fans can safely return to Celtic a major priority. We're working close with relevant authorities, including the Scottish Government, to be when given will give us the go-ahead to welcome Sens back. Again, we always aim to be at the fore of these discussions on behalf of the supporters. We want our fans back with us more than to create a special Celtic atmosphere we can possible for next season. We have not been able to deliver this kind of the kind of season we have hoped to become. Used to stand praise of success. Still, understand the disappointment and frustration of our supporters. Now we make it our objective to return to Celtic to the top in the shortest time frames. For this intention has always been a Celtic that we're highly motivated and aiming to do all we can to bring Sussex back to the club, and we are sure you we are working with our supporters that this can be achieved. We thank you all our fans for the continued support, and we'll keep you updated as soon as possible. Mark, what's your thoughts on this email sent out? It doesn't really give us much to what we already knew, really, does it?
The first thing that struck out to me was that nobody's name was at the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm. So was this just another one from our PR department or media section, do you think?
Well, that's what it reads like, doesn't it? It's just, it's not really telling us anything. It's just a puff piece, a wee pat in the head to kidding on that they're keeping us up to date with things and that, when it doesn't really tell you anything.
You know, like, is the concern that they mentioned we are still working on the best possible candidates? Or do you think that that's just prolonging the process till they make the announcement? You know,
playing on words again, isn't it? Just we're covering all bases, we're making sure we're doing everything the right way, and we're going to make it right. It's just, to me, it was just a complete waste of time sending it out, Paul. It really was. It didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Just there was more questions than answers in it, really.
Mm-hmm. But has it just been the typical Celtic board just sending out what we all kind of knew what was going on anyway?
It's, you know, something. I don't know what's worse. I don't know if it would have been better for them not to say anything.
Keep silent,
Continue the silence, or to release an email to people that doesn't tell you anything. Like you said, Paul, we all know this. You know, we all know that there's a manager needing to be appointed. You know, the supporters are wanting back in the stadiums. I just don't get it, mate. I don't understand why that was released. It doesn't tell you a goddamn
thing. It makes
you
think like that whoever wrote this is just reading the papers.
Yeah.
Do you know, kind of a thing, don't this?
Know. Obviously, the club are aware that the supporters are not happy with the engagement that they've had this season. You know, they know that the fans are sort of being demanding answers, etc. But the thing about this email as well, I'm not a season ticket holder, but I got the email, right? And I was speaking to a good pal of mine who's a season ticket holder for many years, and he travels up from England every second week. And there was a number of season ticket holders from his bus that never got the email. So, I
thought it was like the Celtic. See if you were registered for the emails off the Celtic.
No, because I was actually surprised, Mark, that you got it, because it came out that's why I talked to Brian about this, that it came out Celtic sent email to season tickets only.
Season ticket holders is who they've directed.
But that's why I was actually surprised that you got it. Do you know? Do you get me?
I didn't know what you were talking about when you messaged me about it, and then I was just checking my emails and I saw that, and that's how I forwarded it to you.
You know, so like I don't.
I thought it just
because like it's going like whoever wrote this probably looked at whoever followed Celtic over on social media and sent the email to all users.
Maybe,
you get me?
Maybe it was me that wrote it. I had that.
You know, like going back to what they're saying, like we know like season ticket renewals are an issue this year. Like like, do you think they're waiting on the announcement to get the go-ahead from the Scottish Government to know that they do have supporters in next season, or they know that fans won't renew their tickets unless they know who the new manager is, Barry? Is it a bit of both, really, or?
Well, you know something, whether this be true or not, I was led to believe that the delay in the season ticket renewal process was down to the fact that with the club not being sure of when fans would be getting back in the stadium, they were going to be looking at some, what they called adding value to the season ticket. And I think you guys have spoke about it before in terms of, they might be looking to add shares into it, but there was going to be like a whole sort of new look to the season ticket. Again, I don't know if that's true, but that was what I was told. I was told that they were actually going to be revising what your actual season ticket was going to look like for next season, because if supporters aren't going to get in, or if it's not well, I very much doubt you're going to get 60,000 fans in for the first game on the 31st of July. I can't see that happening. So, these supporters who aren't going to get in, they were going to have to look at revising what exactly your season ticket was you were getting out of it.
Well, see, just to touch on something we were talking to Welshie last night. I'm not what again he'd say if it's true or no, but Welshie heard rumours that some guys had their season ticket money took out their bank account yesterday, and the price had went up. No letter anything for Celtic, but the money had been took out their bank account. I'm not saying that's true, and Welshie wasn't saying it's true. It was just something he'd been hearing through the grapevine.
Mark, I've heard that as well. But I've heard that as well. I've heard that it was basically an SOS. Check your bank account. Have a look at your bank account and see if there's been money, because it must have happened to somebody. But again, I'm not going to say because it wasn't me. I don't know.
Unless it's been some kind of hack or something like that. But
it could have been.
There'd have been a lot more publicity.
It could have been an error. It could have been an error or something, but or it might just be somebody being facetious. We don't know. But
Mikey's on the live chat saying his dad's made 100% get the money took.
So there you go.
Well, Mikey's coming on later, so he can fill us in with that.
But I certainly think as well, though, not having a manager in place is going to impact people's decisions. Certain people are going to want to know what it's going to look like going forward. The management team, the director of football, they're going to want. You will get the people who will just renew regardless. That's fine. But there will be a portion of supporters as well. They're going to want to know who the management is in place. There's so many questions not being answered up to now. And as we all sit here, Celtic supporters, we don't know who the manager is. We don't know who or if there's going to be a director of football. We don't know the players that are staying. We don't know the players that are coming in. So, there is a lot of questions to be answered. So the sooner we get these answers, the sooner they appoint someone. It cannot be far away now. It really can't. It can't be far away from an appointment. I'm a bit more relaxed because I'm sticking with my thought process in that this deal was done a long time ago. And, Howe's looking at players. I'm hoping that he's already got players in the door. I'm a bit more relaxed about it. But there is fans out there that they're not, and they're wanting answers, and they're not willing to part with their money until they know and are satisfied that the board have done all they can. Absolutely.
You can, especially the way things have been the last year, and you can understand why people are maybe holding back and saying, well, what if I'm just going to be sitting in a house watching a rubbish stream again for a year?
Yeah.
Knowing it's going to be garbage, I've got better things to do with that money.
Yeah. And also that there's guys on furlough. There's guys that are getting only a percentage of their wage. But listen, they're Celtic supporters, and they'll still do all they can to potentially put money into the club and buy that ticket.
There'll be guys that are sitting dithering whether they're going to renew, depending who the manager is, depending who we sign. And there'll be guys on furlough and scrimping and scraping every penny to make sure they've got their season ticket for next year.
Going by what you were saying, Barry, like that. Like, we're not going to have 60,000 fans in for this the Celtic first game or the couple of games. Like, how do you think they're going to decide who comes in, or is it going to be the guy? Is it going to be the normal Joe Soap that saves up all his money week in and week out to get this ticket, or is it going to be the businessmen? Do you think?
When they first spoke about getting fans in the stadiums last year, I think they were looking at a sort of September, October time. they were doing it on locality. They were doing it on locality to the ground. That was going to be, you know, the supporters with season tickets who lived in close proximity to ground would be priority. I think as things have got a wee bit more relaxed, and you know the virus is on hopefully the downward spiral, they're talking about it might be that you get to attend 1 in 4 home matches.
Mm-hmm.
That was what they were talking about. So I mean, how they do it, I don't know. But I don't know if it's been confirmed, but I'm sure everybody read the rumours that we're going at Celtic Park on July the 24th. They're looking at getting fans in the game for that game. So we might have a better idea, if that indeed is true. We might have a better idea as to how many supporters are going to be in the stadium and how they're going to do it.
Or maybe
I'll become clearer.
They can see what way the European Championships is going to go with fans during the European Championships. You know what way that's going to go. You know,
there's a
thrown into the mix as well. We've got that standing section.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's going to affect how.
Yeah, you can distance. Yeah.
That's going to affect how Celtic plan going forward. Letting fans.
I think that will be closed anyway. I think for a while anyway. I think I couldn't see the standing section be open. Mark, and you?
No, but they could almost but yeah. As long as they're all distanced enough, I don't see what. It would look a bit naff and sound a bit naff.
The Green Brigade's banner going down in the middle because there's no one holding it in the middle.
Welsh standing there in the middle, you know. Camera sneaking a can of cider at you, Jake.
Can of cider, yeah. Is there an apology in this statement for this season, do you think? Or like they're saying, we know that this season didn't go as well as we expected, or like a lot of fans are expecting the board to come out and apologise for this.
They can ram their apology. They can ram it if it is an apology, if that's them trying to apologise.
Are we?
I don't think no.
Do you think they should come out and apologise for this season, Mark? Like a lot of fans are demanding it the way this season went. You know what difference is that going to make? Really, is my opinion. You know,
it would be a bit patronising.
Mm-hmm.
They should have been out apologising long before the end of the season when we knew it was all going wrong.
I don't think there's any point apologising. Well, we've still not got a manager yet. You know, all the wrongs haven't been righted yet. You know, there's no point but coming out and saying, "Oh, we're sorry for this season," or "We're sorry for what's going on," when they've still not rectified the sort of managerial position, or they're certainly not announced that they have anyway.
Like I couldn't for me anyway. Like I couldn't accept. Like fair enough if the board came out. Like, but if the players come out and apologise, the likes of Christie and Edward come out and apologise for this season's failures. I couldn't accept that the way they've done tools, Barry. Do you know what I mean? Do you know, like they wanting to be away from the club and them coming out and apologise. Like, you get over Scott Brown, this is last season, and look, we all know Scott Brown's legs haven't been up to it, but the likes of the other players who wanted to be in the way coming out and apologise, and I can't see them coming out and apologising the way they want to leave. Look, I think they're more happy to get this season over it than us.
Even if they did come out and apologise, it would be meaningless. It's just words, isn't it? There's no meaning to it.
I'd be fuming. I'd be fuming if they came out and apologised now, because I'll tell you something. You do your talking on the pitch. Simple as that. You can apologise for a bad performance or a bad night, you know, bad day at the office. You can't apologise for a season. You know, you rectify it on the football pitch, and you know, to see. I'm not going on the game, but to see them trudging off last week after the result, none of them looked like they were too disappointed. None looked like they were hurting as much as the supporters were. So an apology for me would be a slap in the face. It really would.
Mm-hmm. Mark, you agree with that? Like, it's just a slap in the face, isn't it?
It would be, as I've said all season, for the wheels first started falling off. I believe the majority of the blame at the players' feet. They've got to shoulder the majority of responsibility, because we can argue about what Neil Lennon, how he does things, whatever, but you can't. The performances the players put in all season isn't down to a coach, isn't down to a manager, it's down to something else. It's their responsibility to go out there and at least put in 100% shift, come off the park at least knowing they've gave everything. Even there, Barry saying you can forgive a bad performance, you can forgive a mistake, you can forgive giving away a penalty. You can't forgive no trying a leg. It's going back to
what you're saying. Like and you said the last Rangers game, like we all agree that the agreement, like that the starting lineup is capable of beating any team, but it's just the way they didn't show up in any of the games this season, like is just unforgivable. Like in this, you know, like you just think it's like they didn't give a toss about Celtic really, like didn't they, the way they showed up all season, you know.
There was no fight or urgency, or no pride in their performance, no professional pride in themselves, no pride in themselves as men and going out there and doing their job. Just go out there and do your job to the best that you can, and Celtic fans will forgive you. We've done it with inferior players. We guys were took to our heart over the years that aren't the best of players, but they've been out there trying their leg every week.
And we've said it before, they've got away with it for so long because the supporters weren't in the stadium. There's no way the supporters would have accepted that for a whole season. Things would have changed quickly, whether that be the management would have moved on quicker, or whether that be the level of performance that the players were showing would improve dramatically. But certainly they've got away with it because the supporters weren't in the stadiums.
And I think that's one of the I think that's one of the kind of the one main reasons why these performances continued, because there was no fans in there on their backs. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't have got away with that this season if the fans are in there. There's no way the Celtic fans would have accepted that. Do you know?
No, they wouldn't. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that this is continued because the fans weren't there, and like that there was nobody there to sort of get at them or even encourage them. You know, to help them lift their performance. But yeah, I mean, the less said about this season, the better. Let's start looking to the future.
Exactly. So, looking to the future, and before you leave, like there's going to be no announcement coming out, a new manager, in my opinion, until maybe 2 weeks' time when our last game of the season. Do you think that's when we're going to see it? Just finish up the season, let John Kennedy continue to the end of the season, and then they're going to announce it. Because just going back to what you said before, like the Champions League qualifiers realistic are only around the corner, so you'd hope that we have someone already installed and he's working behind the scenes. Like, but there's not enough time really, like considering the rebuild that we have to do. You know?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I don't see an appointment being made sort of during the week or that. I think our last game's next weekend, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I would imagine, or I would certainly hope, that the appointment would be made, you know, very soon after the last game of the season. You know, the actual official appointment, and that way we'll all know who the manager is. And like I say, I'm sticking with it, and I just hope I'm right that, you know, it is Eddie Howe. The agreement was struck many weeks ago, and he has been working hard behind the scenes for this season coming in terms of recruiting players and, you know, stamping his. One thing that does confuse me slightly is the lack of appointment of director of football by now. That's a bit more surprising.
It kind of hasn't popped up for a while, so it hasn't.
Yeah, I mean, if it is a Fergal Harkin, I can't really understand the delay in appointing him. Like there's many reasons and many sort of conspiracies as to why Eddie Howe's not been announced as yet. You know, from, you know, he's wanting his own backroom staff to he's still being played by Bournemouth to he's wanting his own director of football. There's a number of conspiracies there, but for me, I'm a wee bit more puzzled as to why we couldn't have appointed the director of football by now. But
my only issue with that, Barry, is that maybe there's not a director of football being lined up, and that we spoke about in the last podcast is that Peter Laurel is still going to continue as a consultant to Dominic McKay, and that's how the way the Celtic are going to continue, and no director of football will be announced.
Well, you know, if that's the case, then God help them. You know, how can we move forward as a club if we're going to continue? You know, this is an opportunity now to start from scratch. You know, we've got a new CEO coming in. You know, a new management team coming in. Peter Laurel is supposed to be leaving. You know, let him move on. It's a fresh start for everybody. Absolutely.
The board at that.
Does that cross your mind, or does that with these rumours coming out there and
you know, don't put any credence into that about Peter Laurel staying on.
No, it's not.
I'm not saying he'll not be available. Maybe he's going to get paid whatever a year just to be there and then do the phone for Dominic McKay. Do you get what I mean? So just in the here's how do I deal with this with SFA or with UEFA? That kind of consultancy, I wouldn't have a problem with that, because it's a big job, and I said the other night, there's things that Peter Law does day in, day out that we couldn't even think about, what it takes to run Celtic day in, day out. So if you're just going to be kept on like a consultant, that you're there for him to lean on and get advice from, then that's fair enough. But if he's getting
It's the modern game, really. Like, isn't it? Director of football is the modern game now, and for Celtic to move on with the modern game, we need a director of football installed, Mark, don't we?
100%. I've said that for years, Paul. I've been saying on the forum for years, we should have been a director of football.
Yeah.
And this is our chance, really, with Laurel stepping down and with Dominic McKay's lack of interest, lack of knowledge of football, really. Is this the great opportunity for Celtic to come in with director of football, isn't it?
To be honest, I don't care if Dominic McKay's never really interested in watching a Celtic in his life. It doesn't bother me, your chief executive. I mean, he was sitting probably there at Ibrox last week, just sitting there thinking, oh, it's freezing sitting here, man. I can't even get up the road. I mean,
see what
he comes from a rugby background, you know what I mean? But it's his job to make Celtic money and run the club. It's not his job to be out there waving scarves about and stuff like that.
See, just on the Dominic McKay thing, I think there's a perception that, you know, he's a rugby fan. Dominic McKay's not a rugby fan. Dominic McKay worked for the SRU. Dominic McKay's been a long-standing season ticket holder at Parkhead. And I think there's a bit of consensus out. Barry, apologies, then I didn't. No, that's fine, mate. Dominic McKay's well clued up on Glasgow Celtic. Don't worry about that. He's like any of us. We've all got jobs. He was high up in the SRU, but we're not getting a guy that doesn't know the football game. Dominic McKay's been a long-standing season ticket holder. Aye, absolutely.
So that clears up a lot of confusion, Mark, for us, really, doesn't it? That we actually know that he's a Celtic man himself, like, you know, that.
Up for me, aye.
Yeah, I think it's just because his job. People think, oh, he's high up in whatever he did at the SRU, that he must be a rugby guy. That's not the case. That was his job. Like I said, Dominic McKay's for the Celtic season ticket for a number of years. So we're getting somebody that knows the club. He knows the club very well. But yeah, I mean, like we said, we definitely need a director of football in there. I don't want Peter Loyal to be sort of involved in transfer negotiations. If that was to come, that's certainly nothing that we want to see again. Like I say, it's an opportunity for a complete clean sweep. We're getting a whole new department, you know, from chief executive to management team to hopefully a director of football, and this is what the way the club's going to move forward from there.
Perfect, Barry, as always. Thanks very much for coming on, and my apologies about the delay.
No worries.
You know, thanks for coming on. So we're going to move on. And
pleasure, guys.
Right, thanks very much, Barry. Good night, mate. Good night.
Cheers, mate.
So we're going to move on, and Michael will be joining us, and we're going to talk about the last time Celtic really had a major meltdown is when Tony Mowbray was in charge of Celtic for the 2000 and 2009 and to the 2010 season, which he lasted roughly around 9 months with some poor results under his belt. Michael is on the line, Barry. Michael, welcome back.
Yeah, Mikey.
How are you getting on, lads?
Michael, just before we move on there, we saw there in the live chat there about these things that the Celtic board were took money out of some season tickets accounts, and the prices went up. You have something to say in that?
Yeah, it was my dad that phoned us this morning and said that his mate, because we've got season tickets, obviously, and he asked me if I'd had any money taken from account, and I says no. And he says, because I don't want to mention his name or anything, but he says that he got the season ticket money he took, plus it was an extra £100 on top of what it was the year before.
Jeez.
So surely that's a mistake.
And has he heard that? Has he been in touch with the club or that?
He's tried to get in touch today, but he's heard nothing.
And JP is like John Paul Taylor, not put anything on Twitter or nothing about it.
Like I said, I've tried to look into it, and it seems it's not just that it's him that's affected, it's affected a good few people.
Oh, it's definitely something not right about that, isn't it?
Well, especially not the fact that they took the money, but the fact that it's went up that drastically, that's got to be a mistake.
Exactly, that's an awful lot it went up by. Considering they have no definite answer if Celtic fans are going to be in the stadium next season, Michael, isn't it? Like £100 That's an awful jump, isn't it?
Like I say,
That
must be a mistake. That'll never happen.
You know, like considering the situation where we are now, Mark, no manager, the season we just had, no direction from the club, and then the price gone up by £100. Like, that's an awful ask, like, isn't it?
when you don't know when you're getting back into the ground.
Exactly. And like, did he like get any extra add-ons like to the season ticket, Michael? Do you know what?
All I've heard is, like I said, the money was took and
The guy,
went up. That's it.
Paul, the guy,
Jesus.
the money just get whipped out their bank account when they.
Like, my only thinking is like, is there like an automatic kind of repayment thing from Celtic from last season or something like that? You know, like with your Sky deal, it rolls on or something like that. But like to get no confirmation that it went up by £100 is uncalled for.
I think the problem is as well as what you were talking about earlier. There's some guys that are still furloughed and they're scrimping and scraping. So for that money to be taken from an account without any notice, you can't say that to somebody.
Exactly. You know, like that needs to be kind of rectified by the club and kind of sorted out straight away, Mark, doesn't it? You know?
Well, it needs to be sorted out. Open a business tomorrow morning. Obviously, I'm not saying Mikey's a liar, but that's shocking if true. If you know what I mean. If it's
no, like a lot of people have come out on Twitter as well, and I saw it yesterday. Like that's why we started talking. Like, there's a lot of people on the Twitter as well have come out and said it. Like, check your bank accounts and stuff like that. Like, so it's not just a rumor. Like, it has actually happened. Like, these are people coming out saying it. Like, that money has been taken out of their accounts. You know.
I'm surprised the club's not made any kind of statement about that. I really am.
No, I haven't seen no reply coming out. And, you know, I've looked on their official thing.
Ellen, could it be something to do with computer hacking or data protection breaches or something?
Exactly. So I think, look, we let it there, and hopefully that situation gets things. So
keep us up to date about that, Mikey. How it goes with you.
I will do.
So we're moving on, and the last meltdown we had seems to be every kind of 10 years Celtic go for kind of a rebuild. Martin O'Neill, Tony Mowbray, Neil Lennon, and when Tony Mowbray took over, he signed players like Robbie Keane. We had Sluska, we had Josh Thompson. They weren't really big players he had in his side, like so.
Signed that Edson Brathwaite as well.
Yeah, Brathwaite. We had Andres Hinkle in his team, and Georgie Samros was involved there. Like, where we were then, Michael, and where we are now, how could you compare?
I think we're actually a lot worse off now than we were back then, because I'm just looking through the squad, and back then we had Boric, Hinkle was good, McManus and Caldwell were still good, Scott McDonald was good, Scott Brown was still there,
McGeady was still there,
Sean Maloney. Donati, okay, he ended up being not good. Mark Crosas was probably still better, but Barry Robson was a good player. I mean, and you go and look at the players now. You know,
and these players actually stayed in the club for a few seasons afterwards as well. Like, and compared to where we are now, like, we're basically in big trouble, like, aren't we?
Well, it's like everybody agrees that big money will be spent, but just because money gets spent doesn't mean that's going to work. It's just because somebody says going to say, no, there's 35 million. That's all right, but when you've got to go and buy 20 players, that's not going to get you very far, is it?
Exactly. And Mark, like, it seems to be every kind of 10 years that this happens, this meltdown. Like, before O'Neill's time, he took over. Then we had Tony Mowbray, and now we have Neil at the end of it. Like, is this a recurring thing that we haven't kind of learned from our mistakes in the board, that these things happen at Celtic, or is it just football, do you think?
I think it's just football. Well, obviously we've spoke about like the bad planning behind the scenes about stuff, but in general, I think every so often, like, the full kind of club kind of needs a bit of a shake up, just to freshen the ideas going about the place and modernising things and that as well. And well, Mowbray was just a disaster appointing Mowbray. So that comes into it, who you're appointing as your manager.
Could you compare like Tony Mowbray's appointment back then to the Neil Lennon appointment this time round.
No,
You know,
that was quite. I thought Tony Mowbray would have done not brilliant for us, but I thought I'd have done better for us. I thought he was capable of winning leagues in that for us, definitely. But again, I always say about going on to the higher level in Europe. I don't think he'd been capable of that. But I still, I'm not even getting back into Neil Lennon appointment again, Paul.
but like, should like
Talking
what I'm saying, like, should we?
second time.
No, should we? Like saying is like, should we stay away from like, move on from like players having a background to Celtic and like Tony Mowbray was the next player? Or, like, should we get a fresh face out, like having no links to Celtic and look, he's not going to be passionate.
Well,
You know, he's just going to be focused on the job. Do you know?
see if you've got a tie to the club, whether you're a player, manager, whatever. There, I just found out Dominic Kai's a season ticket holder. See if you've got a tie to the club. That's a plus, but it shouldn't be the be all and end all. If you're good at your job, then that's what you get judged on. If you're a Celtic supporter, that just makes it even better. But it should be how good you're at your job. That should be the most important thing. But we always seem to look. They played for us, they've managed us before, they've done this and that. Things like that should go out the window unless
Mhm.
the best. See Martin O'Neill, Brendan Rodgers, there's nothing wrong with them being Celtic supporters or being Irish because they were at the top of their game. But not just appointing them because they played for us or because they're Celtic supporters. No, that happened back in the 60s and things like that. Things have moved to that kind of level, Paul.
It's going back to like if Roy Keane was appointed, like it's going back to the ex-player and
The Irish connection and
yeah, do you know, they,
friend and things like that. But
you know,
it's like we're talking about that Harkin. I mean, he's obviously good at his job, and if that's the best that Celtic can get, the fact that he's got Celtic leanings makes it even better. But as long as he's good at his job, that's the main thing.
Michael, your
Yeah,
thoughts on this connections and stuff like that? Like,
I don't care what connection they've got as long as they're good at the job. Like you said, I don't care what team they support, anything. Like I said, I just want them to come in and do a job at Celtic. But because the rebuild is that massive, like I'm just like you say, the fact that we're still in limbo is a shock to me. You know, like what Barry was saying earlier, and that I'm of the same confidence that the manager has been appointed behind the scenes and he is working. And if that isn't the case, then we're in real trouble.
but what if that isn't the case, Mark? What if we actually going by this email that came out that they're still looking for the candidate? Like, jeez, this is
I dread to think. I dare
you know.
say daring that, but if they've not made that decision, at least to the manager, and them surely as well the director of football, they must have made that decision as well. If they've no, it's going to be a big struggle this summer for us if they've left it this long.
You know, and like going by what we were saying to Barry, like about captaincy, like Michael, do you think that the new manager should be able to come in and nominate his own captain to the club and it shouldn't be automatically given to Callum McGregor?
I've never been part of any football club where anybody other than the manager appoints the captain. You know what I mean? A manager's pre-selected before. If Scott Brown was the captain and he was in his prime, and somebody comes in and says, "No, he's the captain. He's the captain," and that's up to the manager. You know what I mean? Like it's, and Carl McGregor's never. Like I've said, I'm probably boring people in here, but he's never a Celtic captain anyway, in my opinion. I'm not saying that Celtic captains need to go and shout at players and get on their case and everything, but he just doesn't come across as a captain type to me when you see him playing.
He doesn't even come across the kind of quiet Paul McStay type of captain, didn't he? No, he's just got nothing about him that.
Like there's no leadership in him. Like,
I don't think so.
Nothing.
You know, and
just
and that'd be like it's got
himself in that, doesn't he?
like you know, he doesn't look like even when he stood in like and for captaincy this year, like there was no kind of, you couldn't see him kind of speaking out to players or giving direction, like, and that's.
I think it was all about looking fancy with a captain armband on more than anything. Like it was more like a fashion accessory than anything.
See what
Like
Barry was saying as well about having leaders all over the park. If you've got that, it doesn't really matter who your captain is. Your captain
That's-
can be the quietest guy in the team if you've got other guys that are about, do you know what I mean? Being vocal, bawling, shouting, rather than like your Paul McStay guy that didn't really, know what I mean? McStay never shouted anybody out much or that kind of thing.
But we don't even have that, Mark. Really, this year, we didn't. You could, yeah. You
But
know, you can't.
McStay, there was all these other players that were all the same, they all had the same winning mentality, same fighting mentality. So McStay got away with that and carried himself with a bit of class about him rather than be the bawling and shouting kind of Scott Brown kind of captain.
Like it's
If
going back.
anything this season, McGregor's proven how he shouldn't be the captain. Because even when Brown's been off the pace or never been in the team, he's never showed anything the whole season how he should be the captain. At all. He, like I said, when Scott Brown was in his prime, he used to drag Celtic through some of the games with his performances and his attitude. McGregor's not got that in him.
So like going back, Mike, we were going back to saying like the last time, like with Celtic had a good thing. We had a strong spine to the team. We had like Van Dijk, Wanyama, and those type of players. It's going to cost big money alone to get those type of caliber players back into Celtic. And this, you know, like our scouting system really needs to kind of step up and.
It's all in the scouting
Find
and
these
that as well.
players.
Like say, what did Wanyama cost? What did he cost? £1 million or something for Sweden?
Mhm.
So I mean, if the scouting's done properly, then you can get. You need to get obviously a bit lucky, like it says with players and that. But if the scouting's done properly, then like it's, and Barry and everybody's mentioned in the past, the games won and lost in the midfield in every team, and our midfield is shockingly bad. The defence is bad. Didn't get us wrong, but like I say, the games are won and lost in the midfield, and we've just not got a midfield this season that's been able to compete with anybody.
It seems to be an area, Mark, where we seem to be very light on physicality, don't they? Our midfield area, don't we? You know.
Especially this year with Bruno being the player that he's been.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say Sorrow's going to be the most physical kind of player, but neither's we Canty. So you could get away with that. But if McGregor leaves, I'd like to see he's got somebody like, say, like a Wanyama type of player, somebody that's big and strong and doesn't mind a tackle.
Mhm. So like going by what Barry was saying, like it took Martin O'Neill realistically 3 years to get practically the squad that he wanted, and Tony Mowbray was let go after roughly 9 months. Mark, do you think that the new manager coming in is going to be under pressure straight away to get this title back, or is he, if results don't go his way, will he be let go after 9 months, or will he be given time to rebuild this Celtic team, considering that what we have to rebuild this season?
Oh, he'll be under pressure right away. There's no doubt about that, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Who it is, anybody coming in the Celtic, man, is going to be under pressure right away because the fans want to win this title back next year. Unless it's a total disaster, I can't see them only getting like a matter of months unless it's just we were really, really, really bad. So I think a lot of the fans would, if we didn't win the title, they'd be angry. But I think a lot of them would just accept it as long as things were getting better.
Mm-hmm. Michael?
I think, like I've said in the chat earlier, that whoever comes in is under major pressure because that Rangers team isn't even that good, as it's proven. They couldn't even win a cup or anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean. They've won the league purely because how bad Celtic were, not for how good they were. And I think with, like you said, the right players brought in, any decent manager will be able to retain the title.
Exactly. You know, it just under Tony Mowbray, it really I remember that, like, it was just a really disaster of a season. Well, considering the players that he had in his team, it was just a disaster of a season, Mark, wasn't it? Under Tony Mowbray, wasn't it? You know?
Aye, it was just didn't work out at all.
You know, and then after that, though, you could give like so Desmond credit. Like, he did make funds available, and we're hoping that he does make major funds available for this season. Is it money that we actually have for this week? Do we have money for this big rebuild, do you think, Michael? Or
I think there's money there. One, there's that many players going out that'll demand a decent fee. That there'll be money off the back of that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way after the season that Celtic have had that Dermot Desmond won't fund or back the new manager. So taking into account the fees received and the money that he'll put in the season, there'll be plenty of money available. It's just, like you said, it needs to be spent properly.
Mark, you do agree that he will make major funds available? Yeah.
100% agree with that. For just
Mm-hmm.
he's got to, for the reasons we've listed real earlier on there than now. And he's never really let us down that much, has he, Desmond? When we've needed it.
He always kind of made, as he said, he always made the funds available, but it's the way we spent
But like
those.
when they beat us in the Scottish Cup and they were well, supposedly they were all singing in his face and that, it pissed him off. And that's what he went out and get Rodgers. But you know, when he did, it was a bit slow with the Lennon thing. But they're even Lowell's messed this up this season because he was running the club. So now Lowell's at the door. Fans wanted that. Fans
Do
wanted.
you think that was? Do you think that was Laurel's decision alone to appoint Lennon, or like did he kind of convince Desmond that Lennon's the man, or
I think it would be. I think Lowell would convince Desmond that that was the way to go. But
like?
Desmond paid Lowell whatever millions a year to run Celtic. That's what he done. Dermot Desmond's not really interested in the day-to-day runnings of Celtic unless there's problems. And then
Yeah,
when problems get bigger, he does step in and do what's needed to be done. He's done it constantly over the years, so I'm confident he'll do well for us this summer.
and do you think?
I think what's key as well to the next season as well, because obviously there's a lot of money to be spent, and I said it in the chat earlier. Automatic qualification to the Champions League for whoever wins the league next season. That's 30 to 40 million right away back in the kitty for winning the league, because you're guaranteed Champions League group stages.
Mhm.
That's an incentive for Desmond to put in money right away because of the money guaranteed at the end of the season.
Going by this season, like with the qualifiers being for the Champions League being so shortcoming this season, like would you accept if we do get knocked out of the Champions League early, or is the manager going to be judged straight away on these qualifiers?
I think he's going to be judged on the qualifiers right away, like you say. But the problem with that is how big the rebuild is. If they've got players lined up ready to go, then qualification should be no problem at all.
Mm-hmm. Mark?
No, I agree with that. He's going to get judged on them right.
But what would you prioritise, like not qualifying for the group stages and concentrating on the league next season? You know, give that manager time to get the league and maybe drop down to the Europa League, or do you know what I mean? He's going to be judged on these decisions, really, Mark, isn't he?
That's a hard one, that, Paul. I honestly don't know what
it is, but that's what he's going to have to.
Champions League really
his revenue
just comes down to money. That's all. Celtic. So I'd rather win the league next year. I'd rather win the league next season coming than qualify for the Champions League this year.
But they go by, like, we know Lowland's not going to be there, but that did have an impact on the signings of Celtic, didn't it, qualifying for the Champions League? And if we didn't qualify this season, like, will that hamper the funds, or will it make no difference? The funds are there. That's it. They made a decision. The funds maybe the manager was told that.
I don't think it'll hamper the funds made available. It'll hamper the quality player that I want to come to it. Because every player in Europe or South America that want to play in the Champions League.
Exactly.
So us qualifying or not qualifying will be major. Like you said, maybe not in the funds, but certainly for attracting the right kind of
the right player that want to come into and play, have this chance in playing in the Champions League. And
if you want to sign players from England, like you say, Josh King and that I think is a stick on to sign for Celtic, especially if it is Eddie Howe. It would help if you had Champions League football to entice these players. And people say, oh, well, they should want to come and play for Celtic.
But that Mikey, get them in then get them in to play in the qualifiers for us.
That's correct. You need them in here now.
That's right.
See,
but that's
I want to play for you. I'll play for you if you're in the Champions League. We'll come up and help us get in the Champions League then. And then if you're part of why we didn't.
Exactly. But that's going back to the way Lowell did business, didn't it? You know what I mean? Like, he always kind of waited to see if we did qualify and then we'll sign better. But if he didn't, then he kind of reduced the budget and the calibre of player that we signed. I hope we're not going to go back that way like that. It's not going to affect the way Eddie Howe wants to sign players, Mark. Do you get me? You know?
I don't think Celtic look at it like that when it comes to the money they spend. I know it comes in, but Celtic will plan how much money they've got to spend, and it's probably like a year in advance as such. or months in advance, but they'll know. But and whether people, it always looked like that, as if Low was holding off to see if
Yeah,
quality. But there's no actual proof that he done that.
but going like the players that want to leave, we say like so Christine and Edward, like there's even talks already said that Edward won't be available for Celtic qualifiers because he might be called up to the France Olympic team. Like
But
how long?
tell him before that then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like how long do we think it's going to take a manager to sell these players, Michael? Do you know?
Yeah, but the thing is, it changes every year. So when it comes to like playing Champions League and then being cup tied for teams in that, and I've seen the papers reporting about Edward, that never interested me because Edward will not be there to play the games anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'll be sold by then.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't interest me. But a few of the guys in the chat have made the perfect point. Recruitment should start with in Scotland. Like say some of these players, like Guy Campbell for Motherwell, Ferguson for Aberdeen, Doig for Hibs, maybe even Nisbet for Hibs as well. Actually, if Griffiths and that's leaving, because they're players that will get you through the early stages of the qualifiers against some of these teams. But then that's when you need Josh King and maybe Begovic and the guy cooking up for Bournemouth to start coming in early, because they'll guarantee you in the group stages you get them settled in quicker.
Exactly. It's all about so little time, like to get these players settled in as well, Mark, isn't it? You know, before the qualifiers, you know, especially with the European Championships going on as well, it's going to be harder to sign players, I think, is it?
You know, maybe nobody's hard to get them signed up, but it'll be hard to get them in, get them out and actually working at the club and that. But guys, there's the three that Mikey mentioned there. They'll be more than capable of coming in and hitting the ground running. That's what we need. I mean, if Begovic isn't a free, Josh King's in a free, there's no reason why they can't be in days, a week or so after, if it is going to be Eddie Howe, after Eddie Howe comes in.
You would like to think that there's been, if they are the players that Eddie Howe, and if he's the manager, like he's already kind of approached these players as well for next season, you know.
And I'm not even 100% sure that Begovic and Josh King still play. Like I know Josh King's only 29, but I'm not even convinced that he's even in the national setup just now. So like I don't think that, like they'll be able to do a full pre-season in that with Celtic as well.
He's not Norway into that Josh King.
Norway, yeah. So he hasn't been playing. So he, like I said, he hasn't been selected for now in a while, anyway, as far as I know. So we're going to move on from that because there's only so much we can talk about this rebuild. Like we're only guessing, really, Mark, what this rebuild is going to. So until we get an announcement, we don't really know what's happening. You know. So we're moving on to Celtic's last game this season. Of course, it's against St Johnstone, and we know for a fact Scott Brown is going to start this thing. But it's been a nice gesture by the Celtic fans putting Scott Brown jerseys up against Celtic Park this week, Mark, hasn't it?
Aye, suppose so.
Like that's the only enjoyment we have, like, you know. So you're guaranteed he's to start, but is John Kennedy going to make the changes that we're hoping that he makes, all these youngsters, or he'll stick to this?
I don't think it will be the same old for the next two games. That's it for me.
Like, Michael?
I think, like it says, and a lot of this is going to probably go down to it. I didn't agree that Scott Brown should be starting the match.
I don't think he should.
Like, I said cameo weeks ago.
A cameo, he should come on,
I said cameo weeks ago. Like, say, he's made his bed there. I've never said one thing against the guy in the 10 years, 11 years he's played, whatever it is. He's always gave 100%. But, again, he's also been paid well as well. He's made his bed to move on to Aberdeen. That's fine. No problem. But it's time for us to move on as well. Like, if he can come on for the last 10, 15 minutes, no problem.
Yeah.
St Johnstone will be resting players against us anyway because they'll be getting ready for a cup final.
Like, so for me, like, it's another game towards the end of the season. You know, just to look forward to the end of the season, get the announcement done. Then, you know, that's where I'm treating this game, Mark. You know, and I think every other Celtic fan is going.
Scott Brown, it's like fun out with a girlfriend and don't leave you alone, kind of thing. Know what I mean? You just can't believe that he's still going to be playing games for us.
And
a cameo is more than enough to, like it says, to see him off. Like it says, the same as it was like.
It's not even as if the fans are there.
I know. Yeah, but it's totally different. Yeah.
Even for the cameo, it's not as if the fans are there to give him a send off. It's just
Exactly, you could understand, Mark, if the fans were there to give him a send-off for the last, like, even if he came on for the first half hour or the second half, do you know what I mean? But not to play a full game, you know what I mean?
To me, that's not a football decision. Playing Scott Brown, that's not a football decision. It's just what we spoke about. It's the old pals act. It's sentimental, because he's not going to be here. We're not playing the game for anything apart from 3 points, and hopefully we play better. So why is Scott Brown playing? It's still going to be playing. Any of these players are only going to be there next year.
No, like you say, it is a nothing game, and it is totally a nothing game. This is the chance for to give some of the guys that are going to be there next season, or might be there, their chance.
Are you going to watch the game considering how terrible you're doing? And if you see the lineup and it's the same players and they turn up by the same attitude they had all season, Mark, or will you just turn it off? Or
no, I'll still watch it. I'll still watch it and shout at the telly.
Like, it's hard to watch it really, like when it's a meaningless game, and considering how bad we've been, like it's really hard to watch Celtic this season. Hasn't it?
Oh, it has definitely been hard, but
considering the money, like if people paid for Celtic TV this season, like that.
But as I said, see if you've seen this team lineup on Wednesday night, and there's young boys playing, even them.
You get excited, wouldn't you?
Aye, at least you'll watch it.
Yeah.
But why are you going to sit and watch Christie, Brown, Edward just no bother on their backside about it?
But I don't think he's going to. Like the thing that gets me, and Davy Plovin came out and said it as well. I know we teased about Davy Plovin as well being anti-Celtic, but he's came out and questioned John Kennedy's team selections as well. Like playing Scott Brown, he asked why bring on Mickey Johnson rather than Lee Griffiths in the Celtic and Rangers game. Like if he starts with Edward again, like I can't put questions to that why he's starting him when he made it clear he wants to leave, Michael.
I just don't understand why you play players that don't want to beat the club, especially in a nothing game. Like I said, it's time to. This has been going on for weeks, though. It's like I said, we're all repeating ourselves. I think, like I said, it's just going insane. We're like, it's just you're repeating the same thing all over and over and over again and expecting change. But I've just got a feeling that they're going to do it again. It's going to be the same.
And what would be your opinion on this Celtic cult teams joining this Lowland League, Michael? Would you be?
I think it's nonsense. How should Celtic Colts have a benefit? Like, how should Celtic just think they can? How is that any different than when they went bust and they thought they can just start again and just go in any league they want? Celtic have got a team in the league. We don't need two. No, I mean, like I say, we didn't get preferential treatment whether we were throwing money about or anything to get in any league. Teams like Dumbarton and East Fife and fans of their clubs and that, they're not wanting Celtic Colts down there. I didn't want Celtic Colts down there. No, what I mean, I just think it's just.
It doesn't seem to benefit no one, Mark. Don't it? This Lowland League proposal by Celtic, it doesn't seem to benefit no one really. Like, do you know? And
I don't really understand the thinking behind even trying to do it. As we spoke to earlier on about the actual physical games that you'll be up against, the guys so we're going to be playing all these young boys against these grown men that are part-time players. Just kick them up and down the park. Plus, as Mikey said, the wee teams, I said it earlier on, how would East Fife feel finishing third instead of being champions? It takes away from the whole kind of league system as such if you've got these teams in there that don't belong there. They really don't belong there.
Like he says, it shouldn't be like preferential treatment as well, just because you've got a bit more money than the rest that you can just throw it about and just pay your way into a league as well.
Going back to the game on Wednesday, are you worried about the score, or is it that kind of the season's finished, or do you think the players will be worried about the score? Mark?
I don't think the players will be too worried about it. If the kind of team we're expecting them to go with, it's just going to be the same old for me.
Michael, would you be worried about the score on Wednesday, or just get this season myself? I'm like, just get this season finished.
Celtic play the team that they did against Rangers against St Johnstone. St Johnstone will beat them. I'm not confident like that.
Even if they, as you said, like St John's will probably rest players.
Maybe
You know?
the winner. Maybe the players will want to go there and finish off the season that they've had.
Yeah, finish off in a high. Like I think any team, Mark, fancies their chances against us now, don't they? You know,
They do.
you know.
They know that if they get in our face and busy about us, that we're going to crumble. We're not going to handle it. The set pieces. I mean,
Just going on.
St Johnstone will be well drilled with their set pieces for Wednesday. That's a certainty.
I'm just going on St Johnstone for a second as well.
Mhm.
Earlier that the manager Callum Davidson is a stick on for manager of the year. To even be a chance at a cup double on the ninth or 10th budget in the league is remarkable. Like I say, my partner's family are all from Perth, and they're all St Johnstone fanatics, so I've been getting it in the neck the last few months. But like you say, what a team that they've been this season for the size of club that they are, to possibly be in the chance of winning a cup double in the top flight in Scotland. I mean, how that guy doesn't get manager of the year, I'll never know.
Like go by, like something we'll discuss in midweek, and we'll talk more about the end of the season. Like it'll be the Scottish team of the year. Could you put any Celtic player in the Scottish team of the year, Mark?
No.
You know, like
I'm not even going to make anything up, Paul. Just no.
yeah, to go by this season, like
agree.
you actually would find it very hard to pick one player to put into the Scottish team of the year. You know, you couldn't, like, you know.
Our best player's probably been Welsh, I think.
That's
Maybe all season, and he's not going to get a game ahead of Declan Gallagher or players like that have had a good solid season all season.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Into the amazing, like into how it actually shows how bad these players have been this season. If their own fans can't pick one player for the team of the year, like it really has come to that. Like it's so bad Celtic have been this season, Mark, hasn't it? You know.
just how far they fell, Paul. Is just unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
How winning a quadruple treble to this in 1 year is it's unbelievable. Nobody thought that's was going to happen. Nobody. Rangers fans didn't even believe this was going to happen.
No, I didn't think.
I wouldn't be shocked if Edward somehow managed to wangle his way into it just because he's the top goal scorer of the season. But I think it should be based on performances as well. And if he scrapes somehow into that team this season, if it helps his transfer value, that's great. But
yeah, exactly.
But like you say, they've just got a funny feeling that he's somehow going to sneak into that team of the year.
You know, I just can't. It's hard to get my head around it, like, you know. And I know we talked about loads. It's like how bad we crumbled this season. Like it's unforgivable. Like, you know, this season of all seasons, it's just unforgivable. That we crumbled this season so badly, Mark. And this, you know, I certainly can't put explanations onto it. Like, you know, I know there's stuff behind the scenes that we probably never hear about. Like, but like even Greg Potter's come out saying that Shane Duffy's a happy man since he's back at Brighton. You know, that he hasn't been, like, something must have happened.
There must have been. There must be things going on that nobody knows about.
You know, I honestly believe that the things that I was saying, that there was a major bust up or fight in the dressing room during a match. Like you have to think that these things happen now, considering.
Yeah, that's what it happens all the time in changing rooms. Anybody in the chat that's played any level of football, I think even if you won again, there's always something said. So, like I say, that happens every single weekend in changing room, bust ups, people not liking each other and that. But at the end of the day,
it's as if the team's maybe even split into two wee cliques. And if you're on one side, do you get what I mean? Mind the Chris scoring and no celebrating and things like that. Stupid stuff like that.
It is that's petty stuff, really, Mark. Into like scoring goals and not celebrating, like, you know what I mean? That's
petty. It's like you having a daft argument with one of your best mate and then no talking to him for weeks or it. If you've got something to say, you say it, and then that's it, over and done with. That's in changing rooms.
Somebody summed it up perfectly in the chat, and it's perfect. you couldn't put a Celtic player in the Celtic team of the year. Never mind in the SPL. You know what I mean? A nail's never been hit on the head so much ever in that statement. And it's true. So
it is. So I think we're going to let it at that finish. I think that finish has summed up our season, that we actually couldn't put a Celtic player in the Celtic team, no mind saying the Scottish Premier League. As always, our thanks to Michael for coming on. He's given myself and Mark some great support during this podcast. The likes of Barry coming on again, giving us his thoughts. As always, it's second to none what you guys do for myself and Mark, and we really appreciate it. For myself, thanks for tuning in, lads. Mark, yourself?
Thanks again to you, Paul, for every new day for me, even behind the scenes. Thanks very much to Mikey and Barry for coming on, and everybody that joined in tonight. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel and hit the thumbs up button. Okay, lads, good night. God bless.